Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Super important, critical take to give you today, and this is what it is. Whoa, Tiger Woods with a birdie.
Luke Braun here of the Locked On Vikings podcast, and I am built like a cornerback in the 2023 NFL draft.
Arif Hassan with Pro Football Network. I'm built like a receiver in the 2023 NFL draft.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Pro Football Network's Arif Hassan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
Hey, there he is. It's Luke Inman returning. It's the Minnesota Football Party on a Thursday. I'm Sam. Those are the Lukes. That's Arif Hassan. Today on the show, where would Dalvin Cook rank among Vikings all-time running backs if he's done in Minnesota? We get into that hot debate, draft prospects that we like, that others don't. And we've got some leftover fan questions from the Mailbag show yesterday. Ron Johnson also expected to make a cameo. And Luke Inman debuts his trivia segment, which he's been preparing tirelessly for the last 48 hours. He told me that. Hasn't slept. Gentlemen, breaking news sounder today reserved for big golf shots. And big golf shots only. I'll be monitoring. I'm not distracted, but I'll be monitoring. Let's get into the topic of the day. This is the lull. This is the time of the off season where we debate about players' legacies. We don't know Dalvin Cook's future. I suspect it's not with the Minnesota Vikings, and I'm wondering where he ranks among all-time Minnesota Vikings running backs if this is the end. Dalvin Cook, 6 years in Minnesota. I always lean on the historian, Luke Braun, for questions like this first. So, Luke Braun, your take.
So I think we can really cleanly put three guys over him without any argument, right? Chuck Foreman, Adrian Peterson, and Robin Smith. Robin
Smith. That I think is the debate. I'll debate you right there on Robert Smith, but go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Bill Brown I would put over Dalvin Cook. I would put Darren Nelson over Dalvin
wow,
Cook.
That's so exciting.
Because Dalvin Cook, 6 years ain't that much. There's a lot of guys that have been there for a decade.
I know, it's just not many people would put Bill Brown up there. What about Osborne?
I don't think I would do Dave Osborne because I think he was second fiddle to Brown a lot.
What about Matt Asiata or Mo Williams?
Williams, baby.
I'm just confused. So is it more about the
Ontario.
longevity as the historian?
Yeah, I think if we're like ranking running backs over time, and like where they like the place they had in Vikings history, I don't know. To me, the guy who was like the dude for like 12 years, which is Bill Brown, just feels like he's going to ultimately, when we look back on Dalvin Cook in 10, 20 years, I don't think we're going to look back on him with the fondness that we look back on Bill Brown with. And I think I'm trying not to adjust for recency bias a little bit.
No, I understand that. But how about this? You have a game tomorrow and you get the best era-adjusted version of that player.
Interesting.
Right?
I like that.
Would you rather have Bill Brown as your running back or Dalvin Cook?
Dalvin.
Okay. Because that's where I was coming at it from, and I was like, no way would you put Bill Brown Dalvin Cook.
Bill Brown has 4,000-yard scrimmage seasons out of his 13-year Vikings career. No 1,000-yard rushing seasons.
Oh, okay, but no, here's the issue, and this is why I brought up Dave Osborne. Yep. They were both excellent backs, and so you'd split them, right?
Yeah.
That'd be like discounting Chester Taylor while Adrian Peterson was on the roster or something. Well, not quite, but like...
I'll add to that. A lot of those years were Chuck Foreman years, where then he became the bell cow, and Bill Brown played what we would recognize now. I think they would call it like halfback, but he was more of a fullback type.
But so we're confident that Adrian Peterson and Chuck Foreman are above Cook. I'm comfortable with that too.
I'm very comfortable
Hall of
with
Famers.
Totally.
So yeah, I mean, no, I get it. So the question then is Robert Smith, right? Because if Robert Smith did not have injury problems, like if Dalvin Cook did not have injury problems, we have two completely separate conversations about these. But Robert Smith's injury problems, at least at like the beginning of his career,
Yeah.
were more impactful in terms of games missed than Dalvin Cook.
So here is the 4-year window, I think, where we have to have that comparison.
Sure.
Robert Smith, the first 4 years are kind of a wash, whether it was injuries or splitting time. He had a 4-year peak to end his career, 57 games, almost 5,000 rushing yards on the nose, almost 1,000 receiving yards on the nose in 4 years. Dalvin Cook, toss out the first 2 years, injury problems, 4-year peak, 19 to 22, played 58 games, 1 game more than Smith, about identical rushing yardage, 5,000 rushing yards, doubled Robert Smith in touchdowns, 43 to 21, had 400 more receiving yards, 1,400 to 1,000.
What did the fumbles look like? I know that was a big thing too. 19 fumbles during Dalvin's career. Robert Smith with 25 more games, only 9 fumbles. Chuck Foreman, by the way. You think Cook had a lot of fumbles? 52 fumbles? Holy smokes. Hey, don't worry, he's still number 2, but 52 fumbles. Holy smokes.
Look up Walter Payton's fumbles. Teams did not care about fumbles for like the longest time.
It's just crazy to think about now in today's day.
Walter Butterfingers Payton, that's what they called him.
Yeah. Well, no, they didn't call him anything like that because they didn't care. No one cared about fumbles.
That's crazy.
So when you go like prior to like 1990, the fumble numbers are almost cartoonish, like just in terms of like how much it doesn't impact somebody's legacy.
Yeah, I did a triple take. 52 fumbles in 93 games? What? Holy smokes. But it does make sense. You think back to that era. I get it. Especially when you're producing at that level.
Right. So I think it's appropriate to compare like Robert Smith fumbles and Dalvin Cook fumbles. I don't think it's fair to compare Chuck Foreman to Dalvin Cook fumbles or anything like that. Which I am curious about fumbles per touch of Dalvin versus Adrian, if somebody can do that quick math. I don't feel like it right now.
I didn't we do this one time and it was like embarrassingly bad for Adrian? I think it was.
I think you're right. I think you might be right.
So Adrian,
it was like
39 fumbles on 2,418
35 touches, 49 fumbles. Can anyone have a calculator?
In theory, I'm not touching one.
35 divided by 49.
That's 72 approximately touches between each fumble.
Okay, Dalvin Cook, 1,503 divided by 19.
Oh, it's not close.
1,503 divided by 19, 79.
79. So it's not that much worse for Adrian.
Look at that.
But it is worse for Adrian.
It is worse.
Yeah. So the thing with Robert Smith is, so you compared his total rushing, total touchdowns, total receiving, right? How many more touches did Robert Smith have over the course of those 57 games than Dalvin had over those 58 games?
All right, I got you. But this is, I think it's actually a great debate. And Braun, I want to know why you had pretty strong conviction about Robert Smith, but it's 1,245 touches for Dalvin. It is...
But it's over 1,300 for
1122 for Smith, so he was a little more efficient.
Slightly. Yeah. That's
I think I'm going on vibes more than any kind of like measurable here. Robert Smith felt a lot more like this. I mean, he had this sort of Irv Smithish start to his career where there was always so much potential, and he was this Ohio State super blue-blooded guy, and he just couldn't stay healthy. And then once he actually stayed healthy and he kind of made good on that potential, he was a total fan favorite. Everybody was heartbroken when he retired. And I feel like Dalvin Cook right now, if you ask a random Minnesota Vikings fan if they think that they should keep Dalvin Cook, I feel like you're going to get a lot of mixed answers. Like they don't even want him on the team anymore because nobody likes to pay running backs. I think it's going to be hard legacy-wise for running backs to like make the Ring of Honor or get their jersey numbers retired like they used to, because that position is just so like reviled.
just off the vibes alone, the legacy, I don't know. Maybe I'm a little biased just growing up in that area. I'm with you. I lean a little bit more towards Robert Smith. It is tough. You're right, Sam. It is a good debate, though.
By association,
what would happen?
Robert Smith has better vibes. 100% agree.
Like, what would happen if Dalvin Cook retired tomorrow and everybody was like, "Whoa, that's really young." Like,
Oh, you're right. It
how
would be a
people
relief.
react?
We'd be like,
People
oh,
would be like,
right.
"Oh,
that
Does that
solves that
money
problem.
come off the
that.
cap? Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, exactly."
Yeah, because Robert Smith literally had his best year in 2000. Is that is that tracking? Dalvin Cook, people would say, well, he's getting out before he really bottomed out, but he was headed there.
Right. Robert Smith is like, yeah, I'm going to be a doctor.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to come
Did
out
have
with
his
a book.
best year by far. 1,500 rushing yards, and another 350 through the air. Almost a 2,000-yard season total.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild.
There it is.
Went out on top with a 41 donut.
But again, Matt Asiata in his prime, just when you adjust the numbers for that era.
I do have a great
want a
trivia
Kate.
question.
Who's our favorite
I want
scat back?
Kate.
Who's our favorite third down back? Jarek, the Jet? See the guy?
No. Jarek was way better after Minnesota.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Pretty fun with Minnesota too. But
It was
hey,
fun.
Mo Williams.
Yeah, I loved Mo.
Yeah, Mo Williams
Same
is
era.
gonna be up there, right?
waltzing Mweldy Moore.
Oh yeah.
Tulane.
Yeah.
Trivia question.
Tulane.
Of the top 100 Vikings running backs in yardage, who had the best yards per carry of any back? So that doesn't include receivers like Cordero, doesn't include
right.
quarterbacks like Dante. Running
Right.
back.
Running back
Mm-hmm.
yards per, like top 100. So
So
can
this
get
is some
really
weird small
samples.
sample.
Yeah. Like, is it anybody that I covered in training camp?
Yes. So it's a recent guy.
Mike
Recent
Boone.
guy.
Luke wins. Mike Boone.
Oh
it
my
really?
God. Yep.
And it's really not that close.
Wow.
He's 5.3. He's the only guy over 5 yards per carry
Wow.
career within that framework.
Is he still in Denver?
No, he just signed with what was it, Houston?
Oh,
I
good
think
for
you're right.
Oh, they're building something over there. Watch out.
I don't know. Mike
I hope he
Boone is
balls
the
out.
clue that they're building something, but yeah.
Oh, I think it is, Arif.
Nonetheless, they are. I like what
No, they are.
Where's-
They are. I like. They got like Jimmy Ward coming in.
Yeah,
They can
yeah.
keep him
Where-
I
going.
want
Where-
a Kate.
Yeah. Where's Rock Thomas at nowadays? That's the real question.
Yeah, was it Jacksonville State? Is that right? Rock
Yeah,
Thomas?
Yeah.
that sounds right.
Yeah.
I want to Kate real quick because I think I think Darren Nelson is unfairly remembered solely for his
For the
drop
fumble?
near the end of his time
Mm.
as a Viking.
He was good.
Yeah, he was solid. He replaced Chuck Foreman, basically. He was supposed to replace Chuck Foreman. He wasn't Chuck Foreman. He's not a Hall of Famer, but he did all of that all-around stuff. He blocked, he caught passes, he ran well, and he was the bell cow throughout a whole decade of Vikings football. Unfortunately, his legacy will just always be marred because when you hear Darren Nelson, you think of that time he dropped the ball in the NFC Championship game and they lost. Which was a drop, by the way. Don't talk to me about how the cornerback made contact after the ball was already flying away. That was a drop. But
Would he have crossed the plane though? Because he was
Yes.
like on the 1 foot line, and the angle wasn't in his favor. I think he might have been, if not, he might have been ruled short, and I don't think they had review to fix that.
so I think he was definitely in. And I believe I have tweeted that clip from the history doc.
I have the Zapruder film of him.
I
crossing
Zaprudered the
plane.
heck out of it.
Frame by
I
frame.
was sick of hearing. I was watching the 1987 America's game for Washington that year, and they made this huge deal about this
Classic.
crazy good play
You would do
that
that.
Darryl Green made, and it's like, no, he didn't. He hit the dude after the ball was gone.
How old was Green?
You heard footsteps.
on that play. Was he like 38?
I have no idea.
Right.
Darryl Green. Well, that would mean Darryl Green started in like the early 70s. Is that true?
Is that right?
I don't know.
I feel like he came
I know
along
that
a little later.
that he kept running fast until he was 40. That's what I know about him. That he
But
won
Darryl Green was a
sprints.
young player. He was
Okay.
young at that point.
young. So he was merely running a 4.15 at that point.
He was in his athletic prime at that point. He was 27.
Yeah.
I have tagged you with the Zapruder film, Sam. You can peruse it at your leisure.
Thank you. I love Zapruder film.
Did Champ Bailey, when he was a rookie, play with Darrell Green right at the end? Like Champ was a rookie and Darrell Green was like 43 at the time, something like that.
That would track.
That's a race I would have loved to see.
With Washington, like 02.
Yeah.
Champ, Bailey.
Yeah,
Bailey was 99. After this, I want some of your draft crushes that other people aren't crushing on. After I remind folks that we are brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It's America's #1 sportsbook. And as the NBA playoffs and play-in approach, NHL playoffs as well, we got the Masters going on right now. Get in the action. Claim your no-sweat first bet. If you're a new customer, get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. You can bet on every line, every league, everything imaginable at FanDuel, the safe, secure, super easy-to-use app. FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started and claim that no-sweat first bet. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Same game parlays, whole lot of fun there too. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. I've got the money on Tony Finau teeing off this afternoon. Let's go, baby. I go to Luke Inman now for draft crushes that are unpopular opinions. Now, I think Hendon Hooker is the easy answer here, but if you have anybody else as well, let's hear it. Who do you love that others don't?
Well,
How is
loaded.
an easy answer to who do you love that others don't? Isn't it inherently a tough answer?
Because these guys have been talking about Hendon Hooker for like 3 weeks. It's
Rick, you missed it.
Quite
Just
the
us
distance.
and other no names like
Because
Todd
the last time I was
McShay
on the
and
show talking about
Mike
Hendon Hooker, I was
Tannenbaum.
just kind of crapping on him. So
Guys that you like, maybe you have a higher grade on than the general public.
I'm good to go whenever. I got like 6 names.
Go.
All right. 1, Deontay Banks. Talked about it enough on the show. Love the guy. Right now, industry consensus has him at like 34, like right outside the first round. I think that's
Weird.
dumb. I think he should be in the mid-20s.
Why so
Love
low?
Banks.
Just because there's like, I don't know exactly why so low. I think maybe it's ball production. I mean, he didn't have a ton of ball production. If you
Too
take a
many
look
good
at his
corners.
Yeah, and if you take a look at his pure, and there's so many corners. Yeah, if you take a look at his pure yards per coverage snap, it's not amazing. But I think when you watch him, I mean, he's just incredible.
You like him more than Ringo and Cam Smith?
Yes, actually, more than both of
me
them.
too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there might be some stuff that like frustrates scouts with him because there's some like random bozo moments that probably are there's too few of them for it to have like an outsized impact on something like production, but it's stuff that like sticks with you that might be bugging people a lot.
That might be it. Number 2, this one is a bit of a cheat, even though I just made fun of the idea of cheating on this one. But it's Anthony Richardson. You know, he ranks number 14 on the consensus board. I think that he's more valuable than that. I think that that's pretty fair. I just saw, was it Nate Tice and Benjamin Solak just stick up for him? No, Charles McDonald. Benjamin Solak just stick up for him like earlier today on the timeline. And I think that there's a really good argument to be made about how the stuff that is difficult to teach quarterbacks, and I don't just mean the physical stuff, he tends to have. And so when you teach him the stuff that's actually relatively easy to teach quarterbacks, it all can kind of come together. So that is appealing to me.
Would you have any problem with him going number 1 overall?
I actually no. Just
I don't
because
either.
Of the way
exactly
that
what you just said
proposition for these big guys, these big ceiling guys go. Number 18 by industry consensus. So this is not like a huge disagreement. Jackson Smith and Jigba.
This is your last one. Leave some meat on the bone for us.
I said I had 6.
I like
and you
these.
said
These
go.
are great.
All right.
I think that he's great. I think that if you give him, like, if you put into a model that he has like a 4.6 40 time or something like that, he actually still looks good from an athletic testing perspective, just because of the way that he's supposed to win. I think that his market share, given that Marvin Harrison is on the same team, is actually really good from an analytical perspective when you adjust for that. And then I think you just kind of, at some point, have to kind of trust the Brian Hartline line of receivers.
Mm-hmm.
And so
there's something there, something in the water over there.
Brian Hartline recently ranked all of his receivers that he's ever had. Scary Terry was like 4 or 5, which is just a wild thought.
Whoa.
Marvin, number 1, without hesitating. He was just like, who are your top 5 receivers that you've ever coached? Marvin Harrison. And now I'm going to have to think about it. Right? But number two was Jackson. So I'm gonna trust that one a little bit. But I'll let you go, and then if you don't name my other 3, I'll just list them off super quick at the end of this.
Jackson.
I only have one.
Maybe not the straight line speed, but fastest 3 cone in the combine, right? Was that what it was? I know.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Short shuttle.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Which is how he wins.
And a great
Which is how he wins. Yep.
Yeah. I think he's the best receiver in the class.
And if you watched his like route running drills at the combine, I mean, they were nuts. They're just absolutely nuts.
Yeah, but I like these. I love knowing where the consensus board lies, and then just obviously where, in comparison and contrast, where you have some guys too. But the consensus board is just always one of my favorite parts as we get closer to this draft.
Yeah, not boding well for your guy Quentin Johnston though to be first off the board, Luke. That was your big tout.
Well, I mean, now
the testing
13.
didn't go the way it needed to for him.
No, that was the whole thing. I went into the combine week before, days prior, saying I think Quentin Johnston, with everything I'm hearing from Bruce Feldman and some other news and notes and what coaches are saying, he's going to jump through the roof and he's going to run in the 4.4s, if not even faster. He didn't run. He jumped through the roof, but he didn't run, and that was his problem.
And then the pro day,
put up like a 4.49 or something at his pro day, or 4.5 or something.
It was like 4.52, 4.51 at the pro day.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I saw some people say he could get 4.4 flat.
That's what rough. I'm saying.
He looked like he was like he runs so long, like that like long stride thing. Like, he's got sneaky speed that it doesn't really look like because it's so casual.
And then also, we're hearing rumors of 6'4". He comes in at 6'2" and change too, so that didn't help anything either.
That was actually Justin Jefferson. Jefferson had the 2 inches on the team roster that didn't show up at the
man. You can't trust those team
weird
rosters.
Deep state stuff going on with him.
You've
been lied to.
You can't trust those. Yeah. And just that in combination of Jackson, just his short shuttle, the 3-cone, things like that, looking so good. That was kind of the flip. That's how he ended up taking over after combine week as the clear cut number one for most people, anyways.
For most people, well, the industry board still has Quentin Johnston 13, Jackson 18. Okay. I imagine by the time I publish the final board, they will flip. So you're probably correct, but just based off of what I have right now.
Addison 3, I'm assuming.
Which I remember he was number 2 for the longest times. He's A Flowers 4. No. Jackson is actually number 3. Addison is 2. 17, 18.
Interesting.
Wow.
I skipped right over it.
Yeah, and just seeing the NFL just covet these big-bodied guys. Last year, first wide receiver taken, not Garrett Wilson, not Chris Olave, Drake London. All right, the obsession with these big-bodied, physical, height, weight, speed freaks. That's what just kind of enticed me, assuming, all right, Quentin Johnston's going to go into Indy and he's going to tear it up. But that just never happened. Just too many things went.
He might still be the first receiver off the board because everybody else is built like a podcaster.
So
Speak for yourself. Luke Braun, who is your one guy on this list?
Speaking of guys built like podcasters, Clark Phillips.
Yes.
He's 47 on the consensus board. If the Vikings took him at 23, I would not complain about it.
Let's go.
I think the biggest reason he's falling is because people think he's a slot only because he's 5'9". I do not agree with that. I think he can absolutely play outside. I think he can influence receivers in like a squat or a wall technique, which is what cover 2 outside corners have to do. They have to be physical enough to knock somebody off of their route, and slot corners have to do that a lot as well. I think we should probably begin to discard our notion that a short corner has to be a slot corner because big guys go in the slot all the time.
It's Duke Shelley.
Yeah. Big receivers go in the slot all the time. Slot corners have to be in the run fit all the time. If anything, there's like reasons to believe that short corners might be better on the outside. The only thing you're worried about is like, can he break up a contested catch on a fade, that kind of thing, which definitely is a concern, which is why he's like the 6th guy on my board, but that there's 6 guys I would take at 23 of this corner class. But I love he has a very diverse set of footwork techniques. He can shuffle really well. His back pedal is really great. He can break on stuff really great. His feet are very clean. There's no wasted motion. There's a lot of great technique. He's really heady. He sees the field. There's so much to like about Clark Phillips, and I think people are just overthinking it because they see that he's 5'9" and they think, got to be a nickel, got to be only on the field 70% of the time because this is 2004 and that's how cornerback works.
Yeah, and just to echo you too, like, okay, I get it. He's a huge outlier. People just want to throw him in the trash right away. Can't play in the NFL. 29-inch arms. I get it. 5'9", but you flip on the tape. That dude plays. He thinks he's 6'5", 220. Like he'll take on some 260-pound tight ends and offensive linemen once in a while. He'll hold his own once in a while. He gets the job done. And I just love DBs who get their hands on the ball, 9 interceptions the last 3 years, 6 last year alone, 68 passer rating against. There's some stuff to worry about for sure. A little limited in the NFL. Tackling, I worry about a little bit, but you just get him on the field. He's just one of those hard-nosed, tough football players. And in such a loaded class of cornerbacks, again, by the way, last year was loaded too. I don't know where you project him, Luke, but if he ends up going 3rd, 4th round, I mean, you're picking in the 3rd, 4th round. What are you really expecting? I mean, a starter would be outstanding. A sub-package guy. Yeah, somebody who can impact a sub-package or something like that. You're getting your money's worth, I feel like. So I don't know where he's going to end up going, but somewhere in that 3rd round-ish, I feel like would be great.
So right now he's ranked 47th on the board. You talk to any Pac-12 quarterback, and they'll say that he was the most difficult corner to throw against in the Pac-12, period.
There you go.
I mean, it's just but my issue is that, with projection, right? Because Amik Robertson was an incredible corner.
That's right.
5'7". Incredible. Went in the 5th round, I think.
5'7"? God, I forgot about him.
Yeah, right? He was incredible. And he was
Mayock.
like Colin Johnson, right? 6'5" Texas receiver.
Yeah.
Like, he was killing it, right? He's okay. But he was the best corner in the country from a pure coverage standpoint, if you don't look at projection. And the Raiders tried to play him inside. He was okay inside. They tried to play him outside because of injury. He was better outside than he was inside. Right? Just like Duke Shelley. But he's not good.
Right. Well, think back to that, because I remember that. That's a great callback, by the way, especially him going toe-to-toe with Colin Johnson from Texas and all that stuff. But think back, Amik Robinson, he ends up going in the 5th, I think you said. Was there more hype right now? Doesn't it just feel like for Clark Phillips?
Oh, absolutely. No, there is. But
yeah,
I think that the comparison is at least instructive.
For sure.
I wish we had a more complete Jason Verrett career to really drive home some comparisons. Now, Jason Verrett was taller, but he's still an undersized guy. But, I mean, when he was healthy, Jason Verrett was stellar in the NFL.
Right, right.
And so there's something there. I think he's better than 47th overall. So in that sense, I agree with you, Luke. But I would not be comfortable with him at 23. Those are two different
That's fair.
things.
I was torn on that, to be perfectly fair. One of my favorite scenarios in this draft, and I think it's plausible, is the one where the Vikings trade back, get additional day 2 picks, and take Clark Phillips with one of those day 2
Love
picks.
that.
Yeah, I would.
Great minds battling it out, and I've got a front row seat. This is great. Creed Bratton, The Office. I'll give you one guy that I think is undervalued. Then we got Ron Johnson waiting in the wings. Marvin Mims. Oklahoma receiver.
Profile's good.
It's unbelievable.
This is, again, a guy that people will profile as a slot. I think he can play outside. He's a speed guy. He's a deep guy. He's a contested catch guy. He's a yak guy. He's young. Just turned 21. Love his profile. Think he's a day 2 pick.
Played with like 3 different quarterbacks and 3 head coaches and 2 different systems, and still dominated in college and high school. I think coming out, he was an absolute beast too.
Super quick. Josh Downs, BJ Ojolari, Darnell Wright. Those are my last.
Nice. Love Ojolari. Never gets talked about. Never hear BJ Ojolari's name like that.
All right. Let's bring Ron on.
Ron Johnson next. Make sure to subscribe to Luke Inman's newsletter, NFL Draft Buzz, lockedonpodcast.com/newsletters to subscribe, punch in your email for free, get the latest draft news straight to your inbox. Ron Johnson joins the Minnesota Football Party. He hosts the Ron Johnson Show Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays with the Roundtable on Friday. You can find him on Twitter at 3Ron Johnson. Ron, we're kind of nerding out about our favorite draft prospects. How far down the road do you get with prospects? Do you kind of go in with some guys that you've got your eye on, or do you kind of let it come to you on draft night?
Honestly, like this year, normally I do, like the Vikings do a big deal of it. In the past, they've sent us, here's a couple positions and guys we're looking at drafting, and they'll give us like receivers, they'll give us maybe some DBs, tight ends, guys that fit the guys I want to talk about for the show. This year has been a bit of quiet, I guess I'll call it. Now, granted, the draft party's not to the 27th. In the TV world, contrary to belief, a lot of these shows are put together like a week and a half out. So I don't really waste too much time on it early. I do a couple mock drafts every once in a while, but the Vikings only having 5 picks right now. Honestly, it's tough to get super excited with a team that you already know they don't need much. And I think that's why there's been less buzz around what the Vikings possibly might do, because it's not like one of those years where they have to get a guy like Justin Jefferson, or they have to get a Dalvin Cook, or they like if they don't get Christian Darrisaw, they're in trouble. they have the pieces already. Like, it's just how do we add these last pieces of the puzzle to build this possible playoff run championship team? And I think that's it. But I do like the corners that could fall to them at 23 when you add Byron Murphy in, who's a guy that can play in the slot and outside. It gives you leeway to go get a guy like Joey Porter Jr., who can be a day one starter, long play outside, and then that allows Byron Murphy to be your nickel. He could be your left or right corner starter. Then he could be your nickel. You can bring in Andrew Booth Jr. or a Caleb Evans as your third DB to stay outside, but Byron Murphy's going to be your travel DB. So that's really about as far as I've gotten. Osiris Torrance, the offensive lineman out of Florida, he's rumored to go to the Jags, which is after the Vikings. So if the Vikings aren't too keen on the guards they have now, because you look at Ezra Cleveland, the other guys they bought in, are those the answers to this as well? They did re-sign Bradbury. So if offensive guard is the way to go, that could be a pick there too. But my gut feeling is that it's going to be a trade back. The Vikings have historically, because it's not just the coach and the GM, it's the owners as well. And historically, they're always looking to get more picks. And so I do feel like it's going to be a trade back situation to get more picks, maybe a late first and a second round pick for their 23rd pick. That could happen.
Yeah, I think the guard thought is interesting too, because Ezra Cleveland is in a contract year, and if Ed Ingram doesn't take a big step forward, they might need a right guard as well. So that is a sneaky area of need down the road. I noticed you have the TaylorMade hat on, Ron, too. Is that a Masters thing today? Are you in golf mode?
A little bit in golf mode. Also, just I'm prepping for a possible commercial. Still trying to work some contract stuff out. So part of the deal with the commercial was don't cut your hair until we shoot the commercial. So it's part of that too. A little bit of just not the normal haircut. So I threw the hat on. But yeah, it's Masters week. I'm excited about that. So and this is my hope to bring some sunshine to Minnesota, melt the snow so these courses can open up.
Beautiful. Luke Inman, what do you got?
Yeah. Hey, Ron, speaking of the Masters, Sam and I had this conversation a few weeks ago. A lot harder than I thought it was going to be. We tried ranking our favorite spring sporting events. You don't need to rank them all, but you got NBA and NHL playoffs, the Masters, as we were just talking about, March Madness, which was so entertaining this year. The NFL draft is my personal favorite. Which one of those is your favorite every year, or the one you get most excited about for?
I'm not really an excitement person, but I will say you can't deny March Madness. March Madness is probably one of the biggest sporting events in the history of sports. This year was watered down a little bit because the blue bloods and the superstars, the first round draft pick type of guys, were not in the finals and the Final Four. But I will say, March Madness is right there. The Masters is up there because I call it appointment TV. Like Tiger Woods, I think he's 2 over, and the cameras cannot stay off of him. It's just, you want to watch him do great. You want to watch the train wreck. You want to watch it all. So Tiger Woods, I don't think there's ever been a golfer that forces you to want to watch. Like Tiger Woods has everybody. Like I was just at the gym working out, and everybody was watching. Like every time they showed Tiger on the TV, you can see everybody kind of stop and just want to see what happens. Like, is Tiger going to hold this out? Can he make a big run? Can we see the red shirt on Sunday? I mean, that's what it's about. So I do love the Masters. And then from there, the NFL draft is up there. But even the NFL draft this year, to me, it just feels like who's going to be the guy? Because there's always a guy that gets drafted and then everybody doesn't believe in it until it happens. I don't know. CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, Levis, Hooker, all these quarterbacks, to me, I'm not bought in on any of them. Like I don't think I am. I do believe though that Frank Wright, whoever he gets, he can turn him into a guy because he does have the weapons there now. But yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens with these drafted quarterbacks and how their season plays out.
Ron, last year the Vikings released a whole big series about golf. Since it's the Masters weekend, let's talk a little golf. Kirk Cousins, Adam Thielen, Harrison Smith, Patrick Peterson. 2 of those guys are gone now.
Yep.
Is Kirk Cousins now the best golfer on the Vikings? Is it Harrison Smith? Is it someone else we don't know yet?
I forgot Adam Thielen is gone. Yeah, because Thielen would have been the best. He is gone. I asked, you know what? I can't remember what Kirk said because I asked him about that because he's down in Florida. And when I saw him, we were talking about golf a little bit. I can't remember what he said, but he is good. So I will say, I guess default he is because Harrison Smith told me he's only like 80 something, like he's in the 80s, but which is still good to me. But he's in the 80s.
There's anybody who can like dethrone him? Like somebody sneaky that can come in to
Hawkinson, I think, is good. That's what I've heard.
Is Hawkinson a good golfer?
I've heard he's good, yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know. I mean,
we the Pro Bowl.
That the biggest thing is I think they do like a players deal, and so my guess is when they do their little golf deal for the Vikings, we'll find out. But yeah, I'm guessing Kirk, Hawkinson, and then Harrison Smith. But it could be some other guys on the team that we don't know about. But those three, I guess I'd say. Yeah, I forgot. It's weird. I forgot Adam Thielen was gone. You're right.
It's weird.
It's been a bit since we haven't had a Thielen on the roster. Yeah. My question, I guess, is just Luke brought up like the golfing at the Pro Bowl, and I'm never going to forget Za'Darious Smith's attempts at a swing. And that was pretty fun to watch, but now it just makes me think, hey, we talked a lot about Dalvin Cook on the show. What's the deal with Za'Darious Smith? Is he going to be on the roster? Like, what's your read on that?
Yeah, so if you look at a lot of these players like Aaron Rodgers, like Za'Darius Smith, Dalvin Cook, who just Austin Eckler, who was able to seek out contract offers, Lamar Jackson, a lot of these owners and GMs, they're playing this game now because they know it's like playing chicken, and who's going to balk first, who's going to turn off and say, okay, here's what I'll do. I think that's what these GMs are willing to do at this point because they know. And again, we're hearing the fact that the Cardinals were cheating, which now I really feel like free Brian Flores. Like the fact that the Cardinals were cheating with a coach that shouldn't be contacted, and you gave him a burner phone like you're a drug dealer on Snowfall. Like
they might be.
Right? Yeah.
Like that entire executive team is under investigation for crime.
They got burner phones. Like the guy that left said, "I have a burner phone." Like he's like, "I still got the burner phone.
Yeah,
like I got the text evidence." But then the Cardinals came out and said, "Man, this dude is an alcoholic. Like blah blah." Like they aired out his dirty. Like don't believe him. He's an alky drug addict. Like I'm like, whoa. Like I told you this in confidence, and now you gonna use it against me because I'm trying to say you cheated. Yes, that's how this works, sir.
Don't
throw stones when you live in a glass house. You can't throw stones.
It's like when Chris Cluey, raised some alarm bells, right, with the special teams coach, and the Vikings were like, yeah, he made fun of the Penn State kids, right? Like, oh, Jesus, okay,
yep,
all right.
So be careful if you got dirty laundry, don't be trying to wash other people's because they will air yours out. And so the Cardinals right now, like you look at that with Brian Flores and all this stuff, and sorry to go off on a tangent about that, but when you look at these owners and GM, that just proves that a lot of these owners have backdoor communications with other owners. And so like if our interest at 32 teams, a couple $1 billion per team, let's just call it $2 billion a team, we're looking at 64 billion minimum. And then you got some teams now saying they're worth 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, 6 million. You got the Washington Commanders that won't even buy their coach a coffee. Mike McDaniels came out with that. Like, man, their valuation is what? And I had to pay for coffee? Like, I mean, it wasn't even Starbucks or Caribou. Like, it was just coffee out of a cup, like out of a mug from a machine, from a Keurig. Like, I got to pay you $1.75 for a Keurig coffee. Like, I got to bring my own little cups because we got the Keurig, but you got to bring your own cups. Like, what is going on? And so that just leads me to believe these owners can communicate with each other. So this is what I believe with a guy like Za'Darius. I think same thing with him. It's like, hey, I want to be traded. Well, okay, go figure out who wants you. Let your agent do it. And then once they kind of figured out what's out there, I think now is just a waiting game of like, when we're in the draft, is somebody willing to give up a third or fourth round pick for him, or 2/3 or something late, third, fourth, fifth round pick that we can use to bolster up our defense, our special teams guys, because the guys we bought in are going to have to start, so they can't do special teams. So I think these are all going to be kind of like draft week type of transactions, or even draft day transactions, or it might even lead until after the draft, let everybody get their rosters together. And then be like, okay, well, this team still needs this team needs this. Hey, the Jets still need Aaron Rodgers. And I think that's what's going to happen with a guy like Za'Darius and Dalvin Cook. It's playing chicken with these other teams.
All right, before I let you go, I just wanted to really quickly touch on that coffee story with the Washington Commanders, Mike McDaniel. The reason that one sticks out as super crazy to me is because, and I imagine this is practice for most teams, but the media in Minnesota gets free coffee, right?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't a coach for a team get free coffee in the media room, right? Why wouldn't a coach for a team get free coffee? That is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, I just do Vikings Game Day Live, and when I show up on Sunday mornings on the road games, we do it from TCO. Like, I can go upstairs and get a tea. They're bringing me water. They're like, I don't pay for that stuff. And so, and that's why the Vikings were an A, and that's why the Washington Commanders were an F-, and the Cardinals were an F-. I don't even know how you get an F-. It doesn't exist.
They had to make up a new grade.
Like, I felt like Mean Girls. I felt like Lindsay Lohan was doing this test. Like, the limits does not exist. Like, the limit does not exist. Like, it was Wednesday. Aaron asked me for a pencil. That's how I remember it. October 15th. It was a Wednesday. Like, I don't understand what's going on with an F-. Like, how do you give an F-? That's crazy.
I think if your weight room is uneven and mats are constantly up and you can trip over them in the weight room, then you have to invent a new grade for how bad that is.
Yeah. I'm surprised they didn't get like a, what is it when you don't complete your class?
An I?
Yeah. Incomplete.
Like, see me after class?
Let's give them an I. Like, we're going to talk to you about this one. Like, how do you have a bad travel? Like, our travel is bad. Like, you have a plane with your logo on it, but your team doesn't have first class seats on their plane. Like, what is going on? Like, that all is bad. But that's why the Vikings are good. That's why they're an A+, and these other teams were F-. But yeah.
Ron, we mentioned Za'Darius, and maybe he joins the list of ex-Vikings at some point. Not sure, but let me give you the list of guys that have moved on. Tell me who you think will give the Vikings regret. Who's going to ball out with their new team? Adam Thielen, Irv Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson, Eric Kendricks, Duke Shelley, or Patrick Peterson? What one guy do you think is going to make the Vikings wish they'd kept him?
Well, my gut reaction says Adam Thielen, just because we don't know what KJ, if KJ Osborne can go as a true number 2, and if they don't intend on bringing anybody in or drafting anybody, I could see Adam Thielen have a big year with CJ Stroud, being the veteran in there, and like a huge red zone year where they're like, oh man, we really probably could have used Thielen. I wish he had, renegotiated his contract. The other ones to me, like Patrick Peterson with the Steelers, they got Byron Murphy, so we'll let that play out. Duke Shelley, who knows? Irv Smith to me is the funniest. Like, I love Irv Smith, but his comments about, like, I feel like I'm the missing piece to the championship, the Super Bowl they need. I'm like, they've been to a Super Bowl. They've been to like the AFC Championship a couple times without you. Like, I get what you're saying. Like, I could be another.
Confidence. You're no Hayden Hurst, all right.
But they already have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and what's his name? I'm like,
Tyler Boyd.
I'm like, I don't know if you're the missing piece, but you're gonna help them. Like, but yeah, like I just don't see it. And getting to the Super Bowl, we'll see what happens, because it is Bills, Bengals, and Chiefs pretty much over there. So we'll see. But yeah, that was the funniest comment to me.
Finally have your missing piece.
Yeah.
Finally,
like TJ Hawkinson, I think, makes you forget about Irv. I think Byron Murphy makes you forget about Patrick Peterson and Duke Shelley. I think Caleb Evans being healthy will make you forget about Duke Shelley. We would have never known about Duke Shelley without a Caleb Evans getting hurt. And Andrew Booth Jr. So I think those cancel each other out. But I do think the Adam Thielen one, that's going to be a tough one, because in this league, I mean, look at I just said it, the Bengals. T. Higgins and Chase, everybody thought T. Higgins can go to another team, and T. Higgins like, man, forget y'all. I'm good here. We got something special. Like, I'm good. And I think that's the biggest piece, to those type of puzzles, is like, some teams do need multiple receivers, whereas the Chiefs, they just need Patrick Mahomes. They'll take anybody at receiver and they'll make it work. So
tomorrow, Ron Johnson hosts the Locked On Sports Minnesota Roundtable. We're talking Wolves coming down the stretch. We're obviously talking Masters. We've going to have a little 4-man team, a little competition. Tiger Woods just bogeyed again, not looking good for him, but plenty of discussion tomorrow. Luke Inman, Ron Johnson, Reggie Wilson, and myself. We'll talk to you then, Ron.
All right. Thank you.
Good stuff from Ron Johnson. Let me close with this. Couple leftover mailbag questions from yesterday's show. I like to get these in because people ask the questions. We want to answer them. Maurice wanted to know about Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He's been linked to the Vikings. I think they met with them or talked to him. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, UCLA QB. Anybody have a take on him?
I watched like 2.5 games. Love the athleticism. I mean, looks springy back there is the best word I can put it. turns a lot of nothings into somethings. Threw with a lot more anticipation from the pocket than I kind of expected going in. 5-year starter, got better every single year too. Doesn't really have the prototypical cannon NFL arm, I don't think, but got the ball up pretty quick. Played that Chip Kelly offense, kind of go through his reads and progressions, which I think there's something there that could translate with KOC. I liked him a little bit more than I thought I would. But again, small sample size. I've heard a lot of, I don't want to say mixed reviews, but some people as high as maybe the 3rd, 4th round. Some people, late day 3, something like that.
So he's 233 in the consensus big board. I think that he is way too low, but I get it. High, super high highs, electric athlete, has the ability to really move in a way that I think emphasizes agility more than speed, although of course he has speed. But I think it's very functional movement for somebody who has to escape out of the pocket. I think he moves a little bit too quickly. I think that he has confidence in what he sees. He's not always correct. His lows are really low, and you got to iron that out. And that's a tough ask. I think he's a 5-year
starter, so you have to kind of ask, why haven't you learned this or
exactly
that yet?
Right? Yeah. And either of the Lukes, correct me if I'm wrong, he's also a little bit undersized on top of all of that, if I'm remembering correctly.
6'2". I mean, let me look at the weight here real quick. I know he's 6'2".
So
203.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So it's a little undersized. You'd probably want 215, 220, and probably 6'3" at least, but that's not gonna
151 10-yard split though. That's what 99%.
Exactly.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So there's a lot there that I really like about him, but he's somebody I wouldn't touch in the first 2 rounds, and I think I would want to avoid in the 3rd round based on availability. But if you got him in the 4th, I think I'd be really happy. I think getting that caliber of guy with that kind of potential is really difficult, and a lot of times it doesn't work out. Logan Thomas was converted to tight end. Tyree Jackson was converted to tight end. Those guys are obviously bigger than Dorian Thompson-Robinson, but I'm saying the high ceiling guys usually go a lot earlier. When you find them later, I think you should take them, even though there's a reason that high ceiling guys are available later. But I kind of like him. It's just, man, you're going to have to wait if you grab him.
Yeah, I have a 3rd round grade on him. And the reason is I think he can be a backup quarterback immediately. And I think the limitations on him, because you see an athlete like that and you think high ceiling. I don't think too high a ceiling. I think really high floor because of the floor that running gives you. Play can break and he can rip off a 30-yard run. Honestly, watching his college tape felt like watching Justin Fields on the Bears this year, in kind of good and bad ways. But the problems I have with him are limitations on his arm. Very clear that he prefers throwing over the middle of the field and does not like throwing to the sideline. Go balls to the sideline aren't there. Throws on the run are not as good as I hope they would be for a quarterback who's scrambling around.
Yeah.
So there are these limitations, and because he's a 5-year starter, you kind of have to go on the assumption that okay, this guy's probably about what he is going to be. This is not, Anthony Richardson's played 13 games. He's 20. He can learn a lot. There's a lot more that experience can maybe bring to him. I don't know if that's the same with Thompson-Robinson, but as a PJ Walker kind of backup, a guy that's wait, you put this dude in if your quarterback rolls his ankle and suddenly he gives you this whole new dimension to your offense that can catch a defense off guard. There's a cool value to that, and that's why I would take him in the 3rd round.
Yeah, I think Thompson-Robinson has definitely peaked, and I also think Hendon Hooker is going to be a future Pro Bowler and win a Super Bowl for the Minnesota Vikings. That is the Minnesota Football Party today. Arif Hassan, Luke Inman, Luke Braun, thanks for joining. Subscribe on YouTube. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. We'll talk to you on Monday on the Minnesota Football Party. So long.